I've been waiting all day for this. Baron, my handsome man. Hi, human. Hey, babe. You ready? All right, let's roll it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Soul Sense. I'm really excited to have you back because today we have a really great friend of mine, a musician from Kingston, but also Toronto and kind of surrounding areas. So I'm going to introduce Joe McLeod. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy that you could make it. And I'm kind of like fangirling a little bit always about you and music and stuff. But just how have things been with you? How's summer going?
It's going well. I'm just trying to work on the tan. I'm trying to not get a farmer's tan this year, which I do every year, and it never tends to look better. But in general, summer's going well, and I'm stoked about it.
The weekend was actually really beautiful. And I, like you, I'm not working on Not a Farmer's Tan, but I'm a redhead covered in tattoos. So, like, I burn usually, so it tan.
Right.
Really good skill.
Do you find that your tattoos actually help with the burn, or like because you're like certain area of your skin is not white, so it like doesn't burn as well?
Yes and no, but it does burn. That's the
funny. Oh, it does still?
Because this arm is so dark, it actually tends to get much hotter faster than like parts of my body.
Wow.
It still does burn, even with the ink, and I find it draws it in almost like black is like it gets
right.
So hot.
Whoa, that's interesting. I never thought about that before.
Hide under an umbrella.
Yeah, whoa. Yeah, I never thought about like the ergonomics of like having a sleeve.
Yeah, and then you don't want to be in the sun because it fades it. So
right.
You know, technically the sun and I now we just don't get along.
Exactly.
So where are you, Joe? And how have things been kind of since COVID hit, but now things are starting to open up a little bit? Where you landed and sort of what happened? Because you had a big summer planned of touring. And
yeah.
So what does that look like for you now?
Well, it changed a ton. Yeah, I think I calculated I had to cancel like 37 shows this summer, including like a West Coast tour. So like, and like this was gonna kind of get like I've played out West before, but this was gonna be like my first real like headlining going for it out West. So yeah, I had to cancel a bunch of stuff. It was a bummer at first. I'm in Keswick right now, which is like an hour north of Toronto. I found it super funny, and I always love it when people try to like pinpoint where I'm from, because I'm never in one place usually longer than like a couple months. Yeah, because I lived in Kingston for years, and then I was in Toronto, and then I'm just bouncing all over. So I find it funny when people are like from here, but also there. Yeah, so I had to cancel a lot of stuff, which was it was a bummer. At first, it was very daunting because like it was, you know, to plan that kind of summer lineup of shows, I had to be working on that from like, you know, some of them before Christmas, you know, so it was like a very long time coming process to like, you know that I have a summer full of like a tour of like, you know, an income and like just, you know, kind of building on, you know, the whole progression of what I've been working towards. So it was definitely a bummer. But I feel like now I've kind of settled into it, like most people, having everything that they had once planned go poof.
Now, were you really sure that this was just going to be a temporary thing? Were you hesitant to cancel shows, or when did that happen for you, where you decided absolutely we're going to have to cancel the shows, and this thing that I had planned, not only on a monetary level, because I get that, but playing music is part of who you are, right? And
yeah.
So at what point did you realize that you weren't going to be able to do it anymore for the summer?
It was after, I think they initially shut the country down for like 8 weeks or something.
I like that it took 8 weeks. It took 8 weeks of the country being like, we are not.
Yeah, I can't remember what the original thing was, but I remember when the country first shut down, I was like, okay, like, you know, I had just played a week before. I had played 2 shows. I'd played one in Ottawa and one in Toronto, which like I'm so happy that those didn't get canceled because it was my first time playing like the Horseshoe Tavern, and like,
Horseshoe.
oh, it was a dream. And I'm so happy that that didn't get canceled. And then as soon as like everything got shut down the following Friday, I was lucky that like I didn't have a show booked for like 6 or 7 weeks, and then everything picked right. Like in May, it was like go.
Okay.
So I was thinking, I was holding off because a lot of bands canceled their like March, April tours.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like I might be safe if I can just like hold off. And then it was like maybe 4 or 5 weeks in when things were like, the cases were still rising, and they were like basically like preemptively telling everyone that this is going to be longer than you think. That's when I started canceling all the shows and like trying to rebook them. But like I rebooked a handful of these shows for August, thinking that would be good enough, and then just like 2 days ago I had to cancel them all again. Like,
right?
yeah.
August, I feel like even looking into the fall isn't a long enough distance away from doing.
Yeah.
What have you been doing in replacement of that? Because that's a big thing. Like your whole summer tour, like West Coast, all of it. So what do you do in replacement of that?
Yeah, well, that was kind of the hard thing to figure out, like, because I didn't even realize, honestly, because I've been playing shows so consistently for so many years, even if it's not like a tour, I was just playing like shows every week, whether it be like at a bar or at a venue, or like if I was doing like live music yoga, like anything. So I didn't even realize that like playing is the like, I did not understand that like playing live and like jamming with friends and like being on stage doing it is totally my favorite part. I didn't, before it was like this whole 360 picture that I was, all of it's great. And like now I realized that I was like, okay, what am I going to replace all this stuff with? And then it kind of shifted between having like absolutely zero creativity and not wanting to write at all because I was so like, I don't know, like just distraught about like, what am I even going to write about? Like the whole point was to go on a tour and then have experiences to come back and write about.
Now we're in COVID. What do we write about?
Yeah, exactly. Like, everybody's home. Like, like, what do you even, everybody, like, how many people, and like, I commend people for doing this, but you know how many friends I've seen that put out like a quarantine album? And it's like, it's so, like the fact that you could be that creative and that diligent about recording something, like kudos, because the first like 4 to 6 weeks, I literally, like I did 2 things. I started working on a studio. Like because I'm building a studio. Yeah. So that was like an early decision, but that was also like, it was kind of coming up before COVID. Like I knew I needed to get this thing done because I'd started it, I started like the foundation of this thing 6 months before, and then it snowed and I was like, oh, maybe I won't do it. And then, it built in. But then the other thing I was doing was nothing. Like I was just sitting, watching stuff, just like trying to figure out something to do. And then that shifted into like, 6 weeks later, it shifted into like, okay, like I'm going crazy. I need to write something.
What did you end up writing? Or where did you find inspiration 6 weeks later that you didn't have at the beginning? What was it that changed for you?
I think 2 things. I think one, I was missing it. Like it's such a release for me. Like if I have like any sort of emotion that I want to get off my chest, like I find writing music is like very pertinent for that, because like I always write songs in a way that like I'm not telling you directly that whatever I need to say to that person. I try to make it in a in a universal way that like anybody listening to the song can get something out of it. But to me, I'm still telling the person in my head that I'm like telling them what I need to say. So this kind of shifted into like, it was writing about things that I wanted to say to people, but also things that I wanted to say to myself, as well as like, just like at one point I had this idea I was just starting to play a lot more instruments, which before I was like writing a lot of songs, I used to I play piano, play guitar, like just to play it. And then I would shift to, okay, well, I'm only really going to play the guitar when I'm writing a song, or like, and I started just playing the guitar a lot. And then that shifted into having like really cool guitar bits that I want to put in a song, but I have nothing to write about. So what am I going to do? So I started like looking up like short stories, like historical, like free domain stories that I'm like, I'm just going to take this story and turn it into some sort of a song, even though like you would never know, because like I'm not using like, any of the vocabulary that is, in those short stories, but like I was using them for inspiration to like just get something happening.
To move something. So when you say that, I think I immediately put a connection between your music to your mental health, right? So for me, my mental health is very physical, getting out, doing those things. But how much of an impact, if we can sort of reflect on that. How much of an impact did not being able to play music, to go on tour, to just be around the crowds, the people, all of those things, and COVID, what kind of impact did that have on your mental health, not having that as your outlet anymore?
I feel like it had a huge impact. I don't even know if I necessarily realized it fully then, nor do I even realize it now. I definitely have some sort of a grasp on it. I think it was like, I've always used like touring and going and playing shows as like a combination of like me doing something that I love, but also it's an excuse for me to go and like, I've been really lucky that I've been able to make a lot of friends across the country. So it gives me an excuse to like get on the road and like do all the things that I want to do, which is like travel and socialize with friends and like try new things. And like, so I found it wasn't just, oh, I don't get to play these songs on a stage to strangers. It was like, oh, I'm like, my whole social circle of like music and this scene and this community is just completely cut off.
Right.
So it was like, it was very heavy and dwelling in terms of like, I felt it was like a lot more lonely than you would have expected, or than I would have expected.
I don't think any of us really could have expected that. Even people who are a little bit more introverted. It's like, I'm a little bit introverted, but on my own terms, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm an introvert on my own terms. But when someone tells me I have to do something, I'm also a habitual line stepper who's like, no, I don't want to do that. But this is one of those situations where we kind of all had to sort of comply to some degree with what was going on. And I think the isolation piece did get everyone a little bit more, and then even to feel isolation with people around you, right? That's something that I know I felt a little bit also. How long did it take you to just roll with the resistance of what COVID was, instead of like, how long did it take you to actually accept that this thing was happening and life had kind of changed?
I feel like it was kind of like maybe after that first period where I thought I might be able to keep the shows booked, and I think I might be able to salvage the summer of whatever. And it was weird because like as soon as the country shut down, I immediately went into like, oh, okay, well might not be able to play a show, but I can do a live stream and I can do live stream and I got really motivated about all this like, potential interaction.
Yeah.
And then like after 6 weeks of doing like 2 live streams a week, I haven't done a live stream in like 2 months. Like I immediately was just like, I'm done with this. I want nothing. Like,
what was it that made you feel done with it? Just that you were giving your time for nothing, or that there was no exchange of something? Or then did you feel people expected you to show up for a live stream even though maybe you didn't want to feel like it that day? Or
yeah, it was kind of a combo of all that, really. Like, some people were asking when I'm doing more and when I'm doing more. And it was just, to me, it was getting to a point where I was feeling a little bit burnt out of it because, I went from, in the early stages of pursuing music as a career, I went from playing 4-hour bar gigs where I was like, okay, I can sit in front of a crowd that doesn't give a shit about me for 4 hours and just play, like you have to.
When you recognize that, I've played in a lot of bands. I've never, I don't think, traveled or chased for the music to the extent that you have. But when you do play in rooms where no one knows about you.
Oh, it's draining. It's like, you're doing it for a payday because, you play a 4-hour bar gig, you're getting $500. So that's like, okay. But it's like you sit there and every single person is just eating or drinking. And it's like, then you play fucking Freebird or something. And that one person's like, oh, you're quite good actually. Like, oh, you're actually, whoa. I didn't even recognize you. Were you playing 10 minutes ago? Like,
were you here the whole time?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you shift from 4 hours where like nobody cares, and like, then you make that huge leap into taking your own words and your own project and putting it out there, and then like you feel people go like, whoa, like I actually acknowledge that you're sharing something. This is cool. And then you go, then I shift to playing 1 to 1.5 hour like sets on a bill of music at a venue or a club instead of just a bar that has music during dinner time,
right.
And then it's like, go online and then you're playing kind of again to like relatively to nobody that cares. And I don't want to say nobody that cares because there are a couple people and like friends and family that'll log on and be like, oh, yay. Which like, I can't tell you. It's like, yeah, it's like you appreciate it so much, because I really do.
Yeah.
When like people that I rely on and I trust and I care about support me in that way. But it's just so different because, you go from playing a show of like, a sold out show where people are like stoked about what you're doing and feeling the music. Cause it's like, if you go to a live concert, it's like that feeling, and it's like, you don't get that online.
Around you. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a whole atmosphere and an essence. And it's like I find you can get that when listening to records too. You know, you plug in, you close your eyes and you can be there. But on this live stream, I just felt like I was talking to no one, even though there's, 20 people in the stream at a time. It's like nobody really interacts. They just pop on to see if it's something that they want to watch for a second, So I just felt like it was it was draining in terms of like me being on this camera for an hour, just being like, is anybody there? And then it just shifted from like, okay, well, I can't play my songs every stream, because I'm going to run out of songs. So it's like, then you start throwing in covers, and then it just started to like, it physically and mentally started to make me feel like I was back in a bar playing to people who didn't give a shit. And I just started like retreating. I was like, I can't do this.
So it was like a bad loop actually for your mental health. It was something that I think you started doing as a release, and then you're like, no, this is not. Yeah,
it shifted really quick.
Good. I like that you recognize that, though. I like that you can stop and recognize that. What else are you doing outside of music to work on your mental health while you're at home right now?
A couple things, I guess. I just bought an elliptical, so I'm starting to move, which is good. We've talked about this before. And then, like talking to people who, making sure I try to have social time in terms of like FaceTimes or things along that line. Like you and I talk every week, which is fantastic. And like, things like that, as well as, like getting out for like a bike ride, just trying to get outside a little bit more. I used to work for Parks Canada, so I used to be hiking all the time, and I used to be out in the woods all the time camping. And I find ever since I've stopped working for Parks Canada and basically started touring or like playing music as a full-time gig, it's turned into like no forest time, always on a road. Like, so it's just getting outside.
Have you thought of going camping this summer? Are you one of those? I called one of the campgrounds the other day and was like, do you have any availability? And they're like, we have 400 people checking in today. And I was like, Mom.
Yeah. I have thought about camping. I think I will. I've been, Crown Land is good if you're an experienced camper. Backcountry, you can go and you can portage or something. But then I also am lucky that I have some family that owns some property kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they had just built a cabin. And it's on like 180 acres and nowhere. Like there's no electricity, there's nothing. So I feel like although I want to go camping at a campground and like a beach or something, it would be, I think I will eventually just go to this cabin and unplug for a week or two.
I love that. That sounds like an absolute dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to give you a second to tell us a little bit about, and you released a new single, so that's really important.
I did release a new single.
Talking about it.
I released a new song. It's called Those Who Can Wait. It was funny enough, the song like went from like being an idea of like, the kind of hook is good things come to those who can wait. And then it transitioned from like just being a song that I was recording to like, it ended up to me being like a thing, releasing this song was the thing that I had to wait for because it got delayed. I had to delay the song 2 times. I recorded it last July, so almost a year ago. I recorded the piano and the vocals, which is, that's okay. But then it went from being this simple piano song to having this like really intense string movement. So it took, it took 8 months to figure out how that was going to sound and record it and get all the strings because we had, layered violins and cellos up the wazoo. Like it was crazy. So putting it out was great, but I had to delay it in December, and then I delayed it in March, and then I finally just put it out in June. So it was like, it was delayed a lot, but I'm really happy it's out. And it's kind of like I said, like that whole good things come to those who can wait. Like I'm glad it's out because it feels good to just have it out of my hands.
But you were really tested with this one, right? Because you did have to wait through sort of big things to do it. Now, where can people find it? And is it really, am I like really putting you on the spot? If I'm like, Joe, sing a song for me.
No, not at all. I don't even know. I honestly don't even have a guitar in here. I could play it on this piano. Maybe I could clean it off.
I would love that.
I could see if I could do it. I've got so many books just like stacked on this piano.
I feel like maybe what we should do is tap in for a little bit of a concert sometime when I don't, like put you on the spot. Where I was,
you know what? 99% of the time, I have a guitar hanging right in front of me, like literally enough that I can grab it with one hand. But I took my guitar away this weekend, and it's still, I think, in a case downstairs. Like, I didn't bring it up because I got home like right before we did this. So I was like, look at my laptop, headphones, Zoom, fuck. Like,
just get on.
Yeah.
Where can people find your new single if they're looking for it? And where can people just find your music if they want to go and check out anything that you're doing?
They can find this single on like any streaming platform, like YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. Literally, like, I don't know if you've ever looked into like digital distribution, but like there's some like, you just click like all options and it'll just be like, we are sending your song to fucking everything. So,
everyone now has access.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's literally everywhere if you just type in my name with the song name. But in general, probably the best place to find like more music would be either my Instagram TV or YouTube. I have a lot of live videos. I've only got 2 singles on the streaming places because I'm working on the album.
I love that. And if I was to ask you right now, for people who are maybe still struggling with what's going on with the pandemic, what would some advice be from you, Joe, for anyone who's maybe feeling a little bit low on their mental health these days? What would be something that you would offer to someone out there that could use a little hand or some advice?
That's a good question. I think obviously it's quite subjective to your situation, but I think probably the biggest 2 things maybe that I could say is A, talk to somebody else about what you're thinking and what you're just, even if it's not like, you know, you don't have to think of it as like, oh, I got to find a therapist or something. Like, just talk to somebody that you trust, you know, that, you know, you trust their advice and you trust that they're not going to, like, you know, if you ask their opinion, they're not going to give you a yes or a no. They're going to like talk you through the idea, the whole concept, and make you kind of realize what you think. And then that's kind of the number 2 is like, listen to yourself, like listen to your gut. And we kind of had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about the song release. And like, it turned out to be, you know, it was a difficult kind of conversation, a difficult thing to navigate. But in the end, you know, after talking to you, somebody that I trust, giving me advice, and then listening to myself about what I thought, you know, in the end, it turned out to be, you know, a lot better for myself. So I think, yeah, just talk to somebody that you trust and that you respect, and listen to yourself, because that's also, you know, a sign of respect that maybe you might not hold for yourself all the time.
I love that. I think that's so great. And so many times, especially now in these times that we're living, and part of the conversation that you and I had, is we feel a pressure to maybe not listen to ourselves instinctually right now also.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on around us in the world, there's just so many levels and layers of things that are happening.
Yeah.
So to hear you say that, it's so true. And I think regardless of the backlash that we could get, listening to ourselves is something we need to tap into a little bit more. So I love that.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that. Thank you so much for stopping in and chatting with me today. And I look forward to every interaction I have with you. And next time, I'm for sure going to have you play. You're going to sing these songs.
Yeah, let me know. I'll 100%. I'll have a guitar right here. Yeah, exactly. It's seriously that simple. Like, it's become bad in a I guess in a good way. Who knows? Bad in a good way.
We'll be in the studio too, because I know you're really close.
Yeah. Yes. Hopefully. I think I'm so excited about this. I think like 3 weeks until it's like the baseboards are on and the trim is done and it's paint, like so close. I can taste it.
It's where amazing music is going to continue to be made. I always just love checking in with you and seeing what you're doing. Thank you for existing in my life and sharing what it is that you love with everybody. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you later this week.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is sweet. I love it. I love chat. It always blows my mind how quick our conversations go. It's like it's like, oh, it's been an hour. It's been 2 hours. Like, what?
Yeah, literally. No, it's funny.
Yeah.
We could be like 5 days away somewhere where we can just sit and talk.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I really appreciate you being in my life as well. It's been a big blessing.
Oh, thank you so much. And we'll chat later this week and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.